when we just spoke about trust, that we were going to do the trust circle, who do you trust, people in your family, people in your neighbor, people where you live, and so on. She just said, I don't trust anybody. Then we went further to explain that it could be your mother, it could be anybody, and then she began to get involved. She was the only person who did not trust anybody.
So basically, she had to think outside of the box. She had to say, well, there actually are a couple of people who I do trust. And that's why we do this exercise, because usually people, after being hurt like that and abused like that, their immediate response is, I don't trust anyone, you know. But when you say, okay, well, what if this happened or that happened? What would you do? You wouldn't even call a mother or a friend or a coworker or someone like that. And then they start thinking, you know, and really fleshing the thought out. And then they realize, you know what, I do have someone in my trust circle. So that's probably what happened, because she jumped the gun saying she doesn't trust anybody, or, and you know, her impulse control could have been, you know, I don't trust anybody. She could have had a day where, when she came to the meeting that last time, where maybe someone said something to her negative or whatever, and I don't know, sometimes it has to do with what's going on in their lives in that particular moment, you know, or that season of their lives that places them like that. And when we establish the trust circle, we're basically doing this void of emotions, void of things that have happened. We want to know who you can trust in the good times, the bad, everything. Because, like, for example, I had a client call me yesterday, and say, you know what, I need to talk to somebody. I need a sounding board. So when I called her, I was like, okay, you know, what's going on? She's like, you know, I'm just so upset over something, and I don't know if I overreacted. And because I'm so emotionally attached to this subject matter, I don't have a good sense. I don't have any objectivity. And I can't trust my own judgment. So she reached out to me, and we walked it through, and, you know, without any emotion. So we extracted the emotion from it, tried to look at it logically, and, you know, came away with the fact that, you know what, she actually did handle it well. So it's the trust circle has, you know, it gives you an opportunity to also understand that your emotions have to be out of your choices and decisions. And sometimes when your emotions can't be removed, there has to be someone maybe that you can go to who can listen to you, be a sounding board objectively, and walk with you through that situation void of emotion. So there are a lot of different people who can be in and out of your trust circle. Just because they're in there doesn't mean they're in there. They don't have to be in there 100%. They could be, you know what, there's this person, like, I'm sure I'm in her trust circle, my client's trust circle, when it comes to, you know what, she's a great sounding board, I trust her judgment, you know, this sort of thing. If someone, you know, where do you feel safe, you know, physically safe, or wherever you're at, you know, you could say, you know what, I trust that whenever I go to my mother's house, I'm going to be safe physically. You know, so there are levels of trust, and there's within these levels of trust, there are situations where you may trust one person in one situation and not trust another person in another situation. A person may feel safe physically with their mother at a home and know that they're physically safe, but when it comes to their emotional well-being, they may not feel safe emotionally with their mother, because perhaps their mother trafficked them, or for whatever. I mean, there could be a multitude of reasons. So, you know, you start looking at this trust circle in a multi-dimensional, multi-level way, which is not, it's not simplistic. I mean, it looks so simplistic, doesn't it? You draw a circle, you place some dots, you label the dots, you're in the circle, you're out of the circle, maybe you're on the boundary of the circle, maybe you're way off the circle, way far away from on the outside of the circle. Maybe some people are closer to the circle, not yet at the boundary, but kind of close to the circle. You know, it's a very simplistic diagram, but it is loaded with all kinds of dimensions. So it's kind of, when people look at this, they may say, it's very I don't know, very doesn't look like much, very, very simplistic, but it's not,
It's very important circle because when I did my trust circle, it was like I was trusting my sister more than my husband.
Mm-hmm.
So I realized that it was very. This is what I did not know. I never knew until when you explained and brought about the trust circle. Mm-hmm. I did it, and I was like, how can my sister be too close, how can I be too attached to my sister and trust her more than the person I'm living with?
Mm-hmm.
So I began to work and think over that, and I realized that maybe the past hurts and so on could play on what I'm doing.
I need you to capture that, Seraphine. It needs to be captured. Okay, so you need to capture that in written form, how this exercise has changed your perspective and how it unveiled for you certain things. And the reason we need to do that is we need to capture it, we need to document that, but also this is going to be used, you're going to be able to use this time and time and time again with this cohort member, with future cohort members. You need to immerse yourself into this program as much as possible. It's hard. And it's challenging.
That's right.
Because, you as the leader of the group, the facilitator of the group, you are on a certain level or platform for this cohort, but there are times when you need to step into their level, and you're gotta identify, and you gotta get to know yourself a little bit better, and you gotta capture these moments and these observations with yourself, even as busy as you are, whenever you get a free minute. And they don't have to be, write them in handwritten form, okay? In handwritten form, so you just capture them, okay? Send me a photograph, and that'll be good enough. I understand you're having issues with technology, so in handwritten form, but you should capture these. They're extremely important. It has to do with your growth. You are going to grow throughout this whole process, just like all facilitators do when they immerse themselves. If you do not immerse yourself and do these exercises yourself along with the group, you're not going to have an elevation of understanding of the material, as well as you're going to gain, you'll be able to gain more credibility with your group. And you'll just have a greater understanding of this exercise, all these exercises, and the process. And for the next cohort, So
that's the whole process is changing me, changing us, because 2 days back we were talking about my husband used to be a very negative person. He would just use negative words, and I was like bringing back to the TDM study materials, and I was like, and also the affirmative stuffs. Mm-hmm. Then we also listened to Cindy Trim talking about positivity, the power of words. So I kind of brought him back. When I showed him that, kind of brought him back to what we are learning. Mm-hmm. I talked about positive affirmations. And to be candid with you, there's a great change. Mm-hmm. The negativity is gone, and we no longer use negative words around us, because we said we want an environment that's conducive for our growth, conducive for everything.
Wow.
So, he realized that the negative words cannot really help.
He should also capture these observations, capture his journey. It's very, very important. We can use this when we summarize this year and when we're done for Ronnie. These are all things that she's going to take into consideration. So he should also, in handwritten form, capture how positive affirmations, how the affirmative environment has literally changed your whole mindset in regards to moving forward and how you use this new knowledge and new way of creativity in everything that you do, work, relationships, and so on, and friends, co-workers, and so on and so forth, and how you're all paying it forward. You don't even realize how you pay it forward by using positive word choice. It's hard to really identify the how you're making changes in how you're creating change in people's lives, because a lot of times we do things we don't even realize that we're doing them. And being positive and saying hello or having a smile to someone we don't even know, like a stranger, how that impacts that person or influences them for that rest of that day is amazing. But when and you just need to capture these types of things and journal, what's going on and how it's changed you, and how he is now using this new knowledge in his work, in his field, and what he's doing. And as he's doing this, does he notice anything different in the body language of those that he is talking with? For example, if he's talking in a positive way with people who are, going through some bad times, and you can notice the difference in a person's face and how it lights up with just a smile. So these are things to pay attention to and to capture just quickly, writing down these observations, even if it's, on a daily basis or on a weekly basis.
That's okay. So I'm going to let him know.
Okay. And I'm so happy to hear about that. I think that's wonderful. You guys are changing your community from the ground up, in the trenches, and that's how real change happens.
That's right. That's true.
So, any other questions in regards to the trust circle?
No. I think it's clear.
Okay, good. So, in regards to the self-defense portion, that's pretty straightforward. If you have the time and you want to, you're going to gauge it. If you have just a half an hour left, I wouldn't go into the CPS next stage. I would sit in the self-defense and then do a debrief, talk about the home play, and then, do your debrief. So, depending on how much time you have left, you can either do the self-defense portion or skip the self-defense portion, right? Or, if you have a half an hour left, I would spend some time on the self-defense portion, because you said they really, really enjoy that. You can go through one of the principles, foundational principles. You can go through all of it, whatever you think. This is this is up to you. This is on your discretion. And the essence of self-defense, is really those three main points. You identify, you plan, you execute. And it's amazing, because if you look at this and you correlate it, it really does parallel to creative problem solving, the creative problem solving process. One is stage one, exploring the challenge. Well, in the first part of self-defense, you're identifying the threat level. You're analyzing the level of danger, right? The second stage is you're planning your strategy to eliminate the threat level. Well, that is what we do in stage two of creative problem solving. We start to generate ideas, right? We're figuring out what could we do. And then in the third stage of self-defense, we basically execute the strategy in order to prevail. And the stage three in creative problem solving is implementing what we've just decided we're going to do. So it really parallels well. And so you might want to, even if you just had, let's say you have an hour left or 35 minutes left, and you wanted to get into stage two of generating ideas, I would at least touch upon this one little point here, which I call the essence of self-defense. Those three steps, which are that parallel the three stages in creative problem solving. Again, you can also continue with some of the pressure points as time permits. I don't expect you to go through all of this. Maybe you talk about one, or it's been 6 weeks. So maybe you say, okay, do we remember what we learned last time? And then bring it forward with maybe one more, another pressure point, one more pressure point, that sort of thing. So this is completely on your discretion. So then the CPS part of this You picked your challenge, which is how might we build a library, okay? So you're going with that, okay? So stage 2 is really a really fun and easy, it's just a fun part of the process. You're just generating ideas. Now, there is a way to generate ideas, and there's a way not to generate ideas, right? The first part is, before you generate ideas, right, you're going to establish the ground rules for generating ideas. And when we generate ideas, this is part of the divergent phase of stage 2. Now, stage 2 is, generating ideas, right? So in order to generate the most ideas that you can in a session, you want to do these 3 things, which are pretty straightforward. You're going to defer judgment, you're going to strive for quantity, and you're going to seek wild and unusual ideas, okay? So whenever a lot of times what happens is someone says an idea, and the person needs to say the idea. Someone's going to have to capture these, right? So someone's going to write them for you, either you or your husband, whoever's going to facilitate this part. You're going to write down any ideas that the cohort members shout out. Now, everyone speaks one at a time, right? Nobody's over talking anybody. Nobody's generating ideas at the same time, because everyone in the group needs to hear every single idea that a person comes up with. Okay, so so they and when someone generates an idea, the group does not say, wow, that's a great idea. Just like we wouldn't say, oh, that's a bad idea. Oh, I don't think. There's no evaluating ideas, whether you think it's a good idea or a bad idea. Sometimes if someone says, wow, that's a great idea, someone else in the group might think, oh, they had a better idea than me. My idea is no good. Just like when someone says, oh, that's not a great idea, they're going to be like, done. They probably won't generate another idea, okay? So you want to make sure that they understand that we defer judgment means we don't talk about the ideas that are being generated. We're literally like an assembly line machine type of thing where we're just stating ideas, okay? Now, the more ideas you get, the greater chances you have for finding an idea toward a novel solution. If there was a normal solution for something, then you don't need creative problem solving. But how might we build a library in your community with everything that's going on, with all of the challenges at hand? You really need a novel approach, right? So the more ideas you get, the better and more novel solution you'll have. Okay, seek wild and unusual ideas. Honestly, the wilder, the better. The crazier, the better. This is where we stretch our minds. If an idea sounds too good to be true or too crazy, that's great. All you as a facilitator want to be saying are things like, this is great, you guys. Keep working. You're all doing a great job coming up with ideas. If you see a lull and ideas aren't being generated, there are 2 things that could be happening. One, they're all ideaed out. But if you have like 15 ideas and you have a lull, there's no way they're ideaed out. Okay, so this is where you start implementing some of these tools like force connections, visual connections, scamper, excursions. And I did give you information on this, but there are things like, if you're in a room and you see a lull, you might as a facilitator say, well, what do these walls in here give you any ideas for how we might build a library? If you have a pen, do these pens give you any ideas? So what you're doing is you're associating, right? And you're building upon other things. So you're going to start forcing. That's why they call it forced connections. You're forcing a connection to a new and greater idea. Okay? And usually you can use food, You can use photography or images of food, machinery, environment like outside, landscape, all kinds of things. You could even get up, take a walk around the area that you're in outside and say, and that's what we call by like having a little mini excursion. Do any of these things out in nature or out in the city help you to generate any more ideas? Okay? So those are some of the things that you can do. Now, I mentioned action verbs. And these, remember, ideas are not statements. And I know I say this here. Ideas are just a few words that show action, right? Get a grant, involve the community, advertise on the radio, fundraise. They could be one word as long as the word is actionable, like fundraise. That's fine. But you don't want people to start making a whole full sentence, because what happens is it takes too long. This is literally, we are on an assembly line. Idea, bam, 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 bam. This is how you want it to be. And now it doesn't have to be bam, 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 bam like that, but it could be bam, bam, bam. You want a consistent flow of ideas. When the consistent flow of ideas starts to halter and you start feeling a lull, that's when you're gonna jump in and maybe help the group along with coming with other ideas with these other divergent tools that I list here, okay? Now this process that we're using is going to be brainstorming. It's not stick 'em up brainstorming, because they're not writing on a Post-it note and handing it to you, right? Because we have issues with people, learning issues with, writing and stuff. So we are actually using brainstorming, the traditional, conventional approach of brainstorming, where we write the ideas on the flip chart or a piece of paper. Doesn't matter where it is, let's get them captured. If you have flip chart, it's great to have them up there and written so that people can actually see the ideas that have been presented, okay? I give you some prompting questions here after, right? What ideas can you get from pictures, objects, or other things, So you want to bring things with you just in case. And they don't have to be anything fancy. You can bring whatever. You can bring, whatever you can carry that's not going to be an issue for carrying. We usually use toys, all kinds of toys. And I realize you probably don't have any, but, it could be a purse. It could be jewelry, okay? It could be anything. And it doesn't have to be anything that you have to buy. Whatever you got around the house, think about it, okay? Bring it if you want. Throw it on the table, or if you don't have a table, you could be wearing it. If you could be wearing jewelry and saying, pointing to it and saying, what does this jewelry, what does this hardware, or whatever it is, a purse, a scarf, clothing, glasses, children, anything you can use to spark an idea.
Wow.
Okay, and so you're going to know when you've exhausted them. I'm going to tell you, ideating, generating ideas is also called ideating, can be a very exhausting process because we're using our minds. Now, you're probably also going to notice who in the group are ideators, meaning, they just can come up with idea after idea after idea. But then you'll notice some other people who might come up with a few ideas here and there. And it's almost like pulling teeth, okay? So these might be introverted type of people as opposed to extroverted. So there's a lot going on here that you're gonna probably observe, and I'm gonna talk to you about this after the fact, and try to see what kind of a resource group they are when it comes to ideating, okay? So when you're done here, if you get to this point, just stop, okay?
Yeah, you're pulling my mind about ideating, who are people who can be good ideators. I didn't notice that. I didn't observe that, but I think Cynthia is very good. She can pull idea after idea after idea.
Mm-hmm.
She's wonderful. So I'm going to observe more this time.
Yeah, at some point I want you to give them the foresight creative mindset. measure, and we will at some point because it'll be fun. And by the way, we're coming up on 6 months, so in September, we're going to have to do the EQIs with them again. Yeah, so that'll be in September. And that's when I will pull, and then I will pull the EQIs in after that. So I don't know when the date will be in September, but after I get it in, it'll take me a couple of weeks to get through them all. Because the first EQIs have been entered but not pulled, but then I have to enter the second group, and then I'll have to pull both of them, and it's quite a process. It's a lengthy process, so it might take me a month or so just to get through that. We'll see. But just so that you know, in September we'll definitely be doing that. And then for the home play for this session, it's going to be at your discretion, okay? And then you're going to let me know. If you know what home play you've assigned after everything that's been done, okay, and then of course you have your normal debrief, and then our next session would be in August. It's third week probably. You can tell them we're shooting for like the third week. Give them an idea, the third or fourth week of August. That sort of thing.
Oh, like I said, it's a very good, sweet session.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's going to be a good one.
Yeah, I think so too.
So straight to the